wow, I mean, there's a lot of people here to hear this. I got a request from some of those that have come to a Unified to share this story with their husbands, so I did that actually this morning. And I told them that there's really no way for me to tell the story of how I started Younique without getting kind of personal, getting kind of sentimental, and explaining how it happened for me and some things that I had to go through. So I'll just kind of dive right in. One of the things that really affected my self-esteem and my confidence as a child is the fact that I stuttered. And it's I am a stutterer. It's not just that I stutter if I'm nervous. I stutter when I'm in a room by myself. But of course, as a child, that was something that was really hard to deal with. To have the answer to a question but not really want to raise your hand, to have people going around in a circle, and so I got to say my name. There's no other substitute for that, right? So there was a lot of anxiety that kind of went along with that. And I knew that there were certain things that I just was not going to be able to accomplish, that I was limited. And that was going to be things that had to do with speaking in front of people or selling things, right? And so I just knew that those things were out for me. Let's see. How do I start the story, Shelley? No, I forget. Okay, yes, now the best part of the story, when I met her. Because of the stuttering, I was also not very social, and so fortunately for me, she was aggressive, getting to know me. I got a call from her on a Friday afternoon, and she asked if I wanted to go out with her that night, and I said, I have to babysit my niece that night. To which she responded very quickly, I love babysitting. And I was still clueless as to what was going on. And I said, oh really? Because I had something that I wanted to do with my buddies. That'd be great. And then there was a long, awkward pause. And I said, oh, did you mean with me or for me? And she said, well, yeah, I was kind of thinking with you. Oh yes, of course, yes. We didn't do that, but we went out to Denny's the following morning, and the rest is history, right? I made the best choice that I ever could have made right there. But she didn't know is soon after we got married, I got really sick. We had only been married for 5 months, and we were living with my parents back in Boise. I started to get really sick. I got some parasites that I had apparently gotten on my mission that I served for my church down in Brazil 2 years prior. Wow. And it's these parasites that are dormant until something kind of wakes them up, and then it was just causing all kinds of problems. And so I found a tropical disease specialist in Utah. So I made that 6-hour drive, and I checked into the hospital, and I was going to be gone for 3 days. It was 3 days of treatment that I needed. And they checked me into the first floor, into this rooms with the little curtains, that just separate patients, and I stayed there for a while, and then they came and got me, and they took me up to the 5th floor, and I walked past the hematology oncology sign, and I didn't know what that meant. Walked in, and they gave me a corner suite, a private room, and I said, wow, thanks for the upgrade. And she said, oh yeah, those people with your type of leukemia always get their own rooms. And I said, what? She goes, oh yeah, you have acute myeloma leukemia? Oh, that's the bad kind. And I see that they want to start chemotherapy tomorrow, so you need to have your own room. And I said, no, I'm the parasite guy. You got to check your charts there. And she looked and she asked me some more questions, and she verified my date of birth. And then I saw that it registered. She looked down and she looked at me. And, oh, so you just got here today, huh? Yeah, I'll be right back. And she left. I still didn't believe it. I still thought it was some kind of mix-up. I waited for about a half an hour. Finally, this team of doctors come in, like 4 of them. And I knew that it was serious. And they told me that I had it, and that I was fortunate to catch it when we did because I was there for something else. And they wanted to start treatments right away. So I called Shalane. Of course, that was a day that changed our marriage and our lives forever. Looking back, it was one of the best things that has happened to my life because it changed my perspective. During those 4 months and 1 day that I lived there in the hospital, of course, when you get chemotherapy, I thought it was like you go into like a big oven of sorts, right? And it's not that at all. It's a bag of poison that they give you, and they give it to you slowly in hopes that it kills, of course, the cancer cells, but it kills everything else along with it, right? And they have to take you to the brink of death, hoping that you come back. And so each time I would get down to the bottom, and I have a ring on my toenail where all the cells died for each round of chemotherapies that I had. But the things that I remember the most are the friends that I made during that time. So many good friends that you could form a friendship and a bond with somebody that is different probably than because you're there together and you're going through something together. And one of those, his name was Greg Johnston. He was a cowboy from Vernal, Utah.
Woo!
Yeah? Oh, we have somebody here from Vernal?
Woo!
All right. And on his first day there, he said, Derek, I don't got time for this. I just like to get drunk and fight. And he said, and they usually happen in that order. I said, well, Greg, there won't be much time for either one of those for a while here. And I saw him change as a person. And we became the closest of friends. And there was a certain phenomenon that would happen that would always stump the doctors and the nurses, and that was we would consume only like 500 to 700 calories for the whole week, and of course they were charting everything. And then it was Monday Night Football, and we could sit down and have Taco Bell and chips and salsa and Mentos and have 3,000 calories. And we became close, and he would start to share things with me about how he had felt about his life, and he could tell that his treatments were not headed in the right direction, and he would start to ask me to live for us both. And I didn't like that. I would say, no, Greg, you're going to live for yourself. And he would ask me to find his daughter, who at the time was 2 years old, and she was adopted into a different family, largely due to some choices that he had made. And he really wanted her to know how he felt about her. But I didn't want to talk about how I was going to live for him or about how I was going to do something great, because immediately those things would trigger how I felt about the fact that I knew that I was limited and my speech was always going to hold me back, right? But things went on, and I was able to finish my treatments, and things went very well. And I went home, and he stayed there. And that first month at home was some of the most beautiful moments of my life. Feeling the wind in your hair, having a hamburger again, just all those small joys in life that you can only experience by having been so much to the other extreme. And it was a glorious month, but there was always guilt there for how I felt about the fact that I was surviving and he was dying. And I went back to the hospital for my first checkup after 30 days. I went into the clinic, and my body broke out in hives, just from head to toe. And my doctor came in, and I said, "What is going on, Dr. Glenn?" And she said, "I think that's just your body saying it doesn't want to be back here." And it was. I mean, there was no reason for it. But there is a visceral type of response that happened then. And now it's something that I kind of enjoy. But just going back to that same environment, I can close my eyes, and if it's only just the sound of the food cart, and it has a little jingle to it, or the smell of the plastic sheets, and it brings it all back to me. But right then, I wasn't quite ready for that. But I went down to see Greg, and he was down in the ICU at the very end. I got down by his bed, and I was overcome with that guilt. The fact about that month at home that I had just enjoyed while he was still there. And I got down by his bed and I grabbed his hand and I said, Greg, please make it up to the floor one more time. And he looked back without any pain and he said, Derek, it's okay. It's okay. But you have to promise me that you will do something great with your life and you'll live for us both. And on his deathbed, I said that I would. And immediately, I felt guilty about the fact that I knew that I wasn't capable of it. And I knew that my speech was going to hold me back, or that I couldn't do something that I would have to get out of myself more. And that was the last time that I saw Greg. And I was able to settle into a life. I chose a profession, of course, software, which I found out later when I went to some stuttering camps that it's the most common profession that we like to choose for ourselves. Because you can make decent money and you don't have to talk to anybody. You just have to write code. You just have to be one with the code. That's what I would do. I would go, I'd put on the headphones, I'd write code for 8 hours. It was beautiful. I'd go home to my family. And I was able to have a family, which is by itself just a miracle. That was one of the first things that I asked my doctor, and she said, we don't have any documented cases. This is her way of saying, no, you won't have children. We don't have any documented cases of somebody having children after having your type of chemotherapy. And I have 5 kids on this boat that are where was I? I was settled into my life, right? I was having my main joys in life satisfied. I had a family who I loved. I had a job that I loved. And I played basketball all the time, with all the rest of the time that I had. In fact, the job that I got was in part because I could play basketball. They brought that up more during the interview process than they did about anything else. They had a team for this company, and we had practice every day. So we would go to the gym for 2 hours, right in the middle of the day. And during one of those incidents, this was years after, this was God getting me back on track and to help me remember the promises that I had made. We were playing basketball. I was trying to guard my boss, who was very good. He got me to jump up in the air, and my head came down right on the top of his head. And I was checking on him to see how he was, and his eyes got huge. And he got 2 guys, and they put me in like a human straitjacket and lowered me to the ground. I said, guys, what is going on? And they said, don't move. You broke your eye socket. Oh. And I said, what? And I got him off me finally, and I went to feel my face. And you know that sensation that you have when you take a step and the step isn't there? I had that sensation touching my own face. I went to feel it, and it kept on going a couple inches, and I felt something squishy. And I did it 3 times. And I said, no, what happened? They said, you broke your eye socket. Don't move, Derek. And I said, and I got up, and I said, I don't want you to call an ambulance, because I was thinking about how much that would cost. And I said, Dennis, you can drive me to the hospital. And they all were kind of like this, like, because I looked hideous. What happens is, your sinus cavity is hollow right here, and of course all these orbital bones that are attached to the sinus cavity, all of those shattered. So my eye socket fell down, and the sinus cavity looked like it was pressing in on my brain, but it was just hollowed out there. And I didn't realize how bad it looked, but none of them could stand by me. And I got Dennis to drive me. He was like 8 steps behind me. And I walked past all the women on the cardio machines, and that's when I clued in that I was not looking so pretty. Just kind of patting their chest like, what happened to him? I walked out and I got into Dennis's car and I pulled down the mirror. And then it hurt really bad. Yeah, it started to hurt. I was like, Dennis, be careful. He was like, I told you we should have called an ambulance. And he got me up to the University of Utah hospital, the same hospital where I had had my treatments all those years before. And like a typical man, he dropped me off at the curb. So you good then? This is true. This is totally true. I walked in by myself. I walked into the ER. there was one guy in there with his arm in a sling, and there was a lady at the counter who did not look up. And I came up, she's like, please sign in, put your name. Oh, heavens, oh. She goes, just a second. She ran in the back, and I heard her say, doctor, come out here, there's a man, he looks like he got hit in the face with a hammer. And the doctor said, well, check him in, right? He just came in on his own? Yeah, no, please come. And so the doctor peeked around the wall, and I saw his eyes flinch for just a second. And he said, well, get him checked in. So she went through the whole thing. She took my blood pressure and everything. She couldn't abide to actually look at me. She asked me for my insurance information. They got me back on the gurney, and they got me hooked up to some morphine. It was nice. It only works every 10 minutes, you know. I didn't know that. And they were giving me lots of attention. But then 2 skiing accidents, trauma 1, came in right off the mountain, and they couldn't give me any attention for several hours. I was pushing the nurse button over and over. They would come in, Mr. Maxfield, we know you are hurting. These people are dying. And then finally I said, how do you know I'm not dying? I was thinking about, I was probably bleeding behind there, because by this time when I felt my face, it was out to here. Big old bushy, I could tell it was just swollen, huge. Finally, they got me back, got me scanned, and this is all exactly how it happened. The doctor came in and he said, well, you broke your face, but it's purely cosmetic. There's a surgeon right here on staff who is the best in the world at doing this type of thing. Come back on Wednesday. And this was a Friday. He said, there's too much swelling now for us to do the surgery now. And I was like, well, yeah, it's because you took forever. But I walked out just like I walked in, all by myself. And now I look like the Elephant Man. It was huge. And I'd had this joke with my wife, Shalane, that I wanted to get a black eye. And she'd always say, Derek, you're never going to get in a fight. You're never going to have a black eye. So I came in, I was like, huh? And she said, that's a black face. And then it had yellow and purple streaks throughout it. I went to church on Sunday. I went to work on Monday and Tuesday only so that I didn't have to use time off, because my boss would see me and be like, oh, go home. So I turn around and on Wednesday, I drove myself back to the University of Utah and walked in for my surgery. Lots of great looks. I was actually kind of enjoying it at that point, seeing people's faces as I was walking by. And he said, well, as you know, this is a student hospital, and your damage appears to be fairly extensive, so should we need to open you up, can a student help with the incision? And I said, well, yes, because I have so much respect for these students that just had to kill themselves to actually make it through the program. But I said, but what do you mean by open me up? And he said, well, we're going to go in with a couple instruments, and we're going to try to grab some of the pieces, but if we have to, we're going to have to get access to the area. I said, well, how do you do that? I said, well, we actually just cut from ear to ear, peel your face right off. He said, but don't worry, we go in a zigzag pattern so you don't have a calic. And I was like, he acted like that was a real positive. Cut in a zigzag pattern so you don't have a calic. And they did, as you can see the scar here. And I wanted details, so if you're kind of squeamish, I'm sorry, but I said, well, now how? How do you do that? He said, well, we have a fillet knife. It's kind of like when you go fishing, just kind of peel the skin back, and that's what they did. They got it all off. And it was 5.5 hours of surgery. They had to go buy more of the titanium screws during the surgery. I have 28 screws and 7 plates right here. This part of my face. Does not set off. It does not set off the metal detectors when I go to the airport. That's the next question. But the whole climax of this story is coming soon. Yeah, there's a reason why I'm telling you. And there is a moment that changed my life. Just being back in that hospital, of course, would also bring back memories. But during my 4 months and 1 day that I lived there was about 12 rooms. That was our little place where they treated us. And I had never seen them put somebody post-op into our little cancer part. But for some reason, for my recovery from this surgery, they put me into room 522, which was Greg's room. The room where he had been for those months while I was in 521. And so that feeling when you're coming out of the anesthesia and you start to become aware of your surroundings, but your eyes were not open yet, right? There was about 20 seconds there where it was hard to explain how I felt, but I knew immediately where I was. I knew it. I knew it from the smells. I knew it from the sounds. I knew it, but I couldn't understand how I was back there. And finally, I grabbed hold of the thought that we had a daughter then. And I thought, I didn't have a daughter when I was going through treatments. I'm not back here with this. And then I remembered, and then the moment that really changed the rest of my life was a very profound feeling of, exactly, Derek, you're right back here in this same place, and you're using the same excuses to hold you back. You're not letting my power shine in your life. You're letting your own excuses and the fact that you have a small speech impediment hold you back from doing what you promised Greg and me that you would do. And I felt a tremendous amount of what I would call righteous shame. I was ashamed of myself. Because I had every reason to be doing something more. And I was not ashamed of the life that I had. I wasn't doing things that were terribly wrong. I was happy with my family. But I knew that there was more that I could and should be doing. So that's the moment that changed me forever. Because I said, I don't care if I stutter in front of the whole world. When I leave the hospital this time, I'm going to at least do everything I can to make a difference and to do something great and to fulfill the promise that I had made to my friend Greg. So how I held myself accountable was I would write in my journal every single morning. I got up at 4:45 for about 2 years because I still had a job. And I worked on some software that became the software company that I started in 2004. And I ran that company for about 6 years and I sold it. What's that? Okay, sorry. And I sold that company and I wanted that to be the great thing that I had done. But really all I had done with that was I had created wealth for me and my family, which was not a bad thing, right? I mean, that was great. But I wanted that to be the great thing so that then I could just kind of take it easy. And it was 6 months after that, I was driving home, and I will never forget this. I was talking to Shalane about a certain situation, about a child who had been abused, and it was somehow not okay to talk about it because it might affect the family. And I thought, somebody needs to do something about this. It's not the lives of, it's that person's life, and she feels guilt and shame for something she didn't do. And I thought, somebody needs to be a champion for that cause. Somebody needs to speak up, because there's so much that can be done. And I was driving, and I thought, exactly. Why not me? Why can't I do that? And I had spent my software career building software for some of the most successful home party companies that you've heard of. And so I thought, I can do a party plan company. It can be different. It can be based on social media, because I had been trying to sell that idea to my clients. It was so obvious to me. Somebody needs to do a virtual party company, a social media-based company, right? And I always wanted it to be somebody else. I thought, why don't I do that? And we can be successful, and in about 7 to 10 years, we can fund a foundation. And of course, from that part of the story, you all know what happened. And so, when I say that I'm grateful for the success that has come, and I'm grateful for what all of you have done, and that I know that God was behind it, I mean it with all my heart. I didn't need this company to be successful for us to be secure financially. That had happened, but what I needed was I needed to fulfill my promise to my friend Greg, and you all have helped me do that in a way that has affected hundreds of thousands of lives, and we're just getting started, fortunately. It's so satisfying for me to report that the 7th Foundation Retreat is happening right now. There are 10 women right now getting counseling and therapy and healing and bonding with each other in a way, and it's something that they deserve. They deserve and they need, and that is going to continue on a waiting list of 700 people that are on it right now. So I love what we have done. And I love the White family, and I love all of you, and I appreciate the chances that I have just to get to know some of you. And all of us together can make a difference, and we are making a difference. Thank you so much. Thank you.